All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll go ahead and the time has come, so we'll go ahead and get started with our our second Mary Talk of the eighth season. My name is Philip Duggins, and I'm in the Alumni Engagement Office here at Mary Washington. It is my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's event. We are excited to host a sizable audience for tonight's presentation, which includes alumni, students, parents, and friends from across the country. As with past lectures, there will be time after the presentation for our guests to answer any questions you might have. Feel free to ask a question by clicking on the Q&A icon below and submitting there, or vote for other submitted questions to help them rise to the top of the list. So at this time, I would like to introduce our speaker tonight, Kimberly C. Young. Kimberly Young is the Associate Provost for Career and Workforce at the University of Mary Washington. She has more than 20 years of experience leading organizations and developing leaders in commercial industry and higher education. Her experience spans multiple sectors, including education, healthcare, hospitality, and the arts. She is a facilitator and a strategic thinker who cares deeply about equipping organizations with the tools to achieve their goals. During her time at Ernst & Young, Kimberly led and supported projects in process improvement, change management, strategic communications, and organization design. She managed large-scale change projects in conjunction with new enterprise resource planning system implementations and implemented new organizational structures to support the evolving needs of her clients. She has worked with leaders in classroom-based and experiential learning in the United States, Canada, China, and Malaysia. Ms. Young was the founding director of the Block Executive Education Center at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, where she oversaw the executive MBA, international programs, and custom corporate education. Through her work over the years, her client list includes companies such as Coca-Cola, Garmin, Eli Lilly, H&R Block, 3M Corporation, and Turner Corporation, Oracle Health. She earned her BA in Public Policy Studies from Duke University and earned both an MBA and a Master of Management in Hospitality from Cornell University. Kimberly is a trustee of the Mary Washington Healthcare Board, the Rappahannock Regional Community Foundation, and is an active member of the Growth Opportunity Virginia Region 6 Council. Welcome, Kimberly. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Philip. I am glad to be here. Well, thank you, everyone. I am so excited to talk to you today about life after Mary Washington. I'm going to share my screen and put us in presentation mode so that we can. There we are. Okay. Oops. I'm going to put us in presentation mode. I think there's a saying that says start with the end in mind. So that's what we just did. Now we're going to start at the beginning. Okay. All right. So good evening, everyone. I am so glad to be with you here tonight. This is a conversation. I'm looking forward to your questions at the end about life after Mary Washington. This is an initiative that we embarked upon as a university, and there was really kind of a runway or a running start. But I'm going to start with right now, where we are and what this is. This is an initiative that packages the best of who we are and what we do at the university into a framework that can shape conversations with our students and between our students, faculty, and staff about being ready for their careers. So this is about career readiness, about connecting liberal arts experience to the world of work, including graduate school, on the way to that world of work. This is about challenging ourselves also to connect experience and start conversations with students that they wouldn't otherwise have. Some things that we've learned along the way in terms of career readiness for our student body here at UMW, one very important thing is that we have to start the conversations earlier. Once a student gets to their junior year or senior year, that's good, but what's better is if we can start even before they arrive. And so I'm going to tell you a little story. Because of this, we have started this conversation about career readiness at orientation. And if you remember UMW orientation, either for yourself or your children, or colleagues or friends' children, the orientation is prior to students actually even moving in on campus. I had the great pleasure and honor this year to participate in orientation by talking to parents. And during that time, we have a parents' meeting. The students go off and do a tour. And during this time with orientation, I asked the parents to close their eyes and think about their 17-year-old or 18-year-old selves. I wanted them to go back to that time and think about what they thought they wanted to be in terms of their career, what they thought they would do. And then I asked them to share what they're currently doing. And I asked how many of them are doing what they thought they would at that time. So I'm going to ask you to do that with me as well. I can't see you, so this is on the honor system. Close your eyes and just go with me for a moment. Think about your 17-year-old self or your 18-year-old self. I want you to think back to what you thought you wanted to do with your life and with your career. Hold that in space. What did you think? How did you think you might get there? I want you to put yourself back at that first year of college. Okay, so you can open your eyes. I can't see if you raise your hand, but I want you to just kind of ponder. And let's go through this talk tonight with that in mind, where you were at that time, what you've done since then, and where you are now. You heard my bio, and certainly I've had a very interesting and fascinating route to the place that I am now, and it's been incredibly enjoyable. So we start this conversation with the students. We know that young people have absolutely no clue about where they might end up, let alone where they're starting and what's available to them. Many times students who come to us initially on campus, they've been exposed to the careers that they can see in their families or friends of family, maybe television, maybe the internet, but they have less of an idea of all of the things that are possible for them. And that's part of what we do in higher education. We set the stage for exposure. We present opportunities for students to try, to explore, and then to choose. Because in that exploring, in that trying, in that exposure, there is an opening up of the field of understanding and opportunities so that they can make choices. So that's me. And as a young person at this age, I had no idea what I wanted to be either. I can say I went through lots of different things between this age and my 17 or 18-year-old self, and certainly my current self. But one thing that I could tell you for sure with 100% certainty at that age is what I did not want to be. Now, I want to give you some framework or some context to this. My mother was a very successful educator, and she is one of my sheroes. She was an educator, a teacher, a principal, and an administrator for her entire career, and very successful, and taught me everything that I know. But this is what I would tell her: I will never go into education. And here I am. I'm in higher ed. I am a wife, a mother, a dog mom, a friend, an aunt. I am lots of things. And unlike my 5-year-old self, I am definitely in education and have enjoyed the journey. So I want to tell you a little bit about our students. That's a little bit about me. Here at UMW, we have slightly under 4,000 students, about 3,700. More than 80% of our students graduate on time or within the acceptable range. 90% of our students start careers within 2 years of graduation, and that accounts for graduate school, volunteer service, and other endeavors on their way to their first career. More of our students stay in Virginia than any other public in the Commonwealth. And so that's students both from Virginia and those who come to us from other places. And I know there are many alumni who are on the call, and you would agree with me that our students and our alums are bright, driven, they have broad interests, they have a penchant for making meaningful connections with faculty, with staff, and with peers. This is a fantastic place to be, and we have fantastic students. So I want to give you a little history on our path to career readiness. It starts before 2015, but this is about the time that I think a time frame that can give us some good context. So in 2015, we relocated our Career Center to the heart of campus in the Cedric Rucker University Center. Around that same time, we launched the first destination survey, which complements our exit survey and tells us where our students have gone to work, or whether they've gone to study, or whether they're still looking for employment. Shortly after that, we introduced career development courses. These are courses that are 1 credit that help our students to explore career opportunities, to prepare resumes, to hear from industry professionals, to put their major into the context of the world of work. And then in 2018 and 19, we implemented a new general education curriculum, which included an After Mary Washington requirement. These After Mary Washington designated courses exist within majors and allow students to really apply this career preparation and think about their major in the context of work. Along the way, from the beginning of this timeline through, we have continued to make investments in software and in applications that help our students to reflect, to record themselves interviewing, to explore their strengths and weaknesses, and to really refine and hone their interests so that they can think more clearly about their future career. And in 2022, though I'd been at the university since 2017, in 2022, I was appointed the Associate Provost for Career and Workforce. And we implemented Life After Mary Washington. This isn't the end of the story. This is absolutely our beginning. So around that same time in 2015, NACE, the National Association for Colleges and Employers, was doing some research of their own. They were making some investments in career readiness. And what they found through research, through primary and secondary research, they reached out to more than 600 employers and asked those employers what was important to them in terms of how they think about students who they hire for interns and first careers. So what were the skill sets? What were the competencies that they needed most, that were most important to success in this realm? And so through a long process from 2015 actually through 2020, NACE engaged several task forces, conducted lots of research, they validated this research, and they developed 8 competencies. You see them here. These competencies have been adopted by many universities nationwide. Actually, 75% of the universities who are members of NACE have adopted these competencies in some shape or form in their institutions. Fewer, about 25% of those, have adopted these competencies university-wide. We are one of those universities. So not only did we adopt the competencies, we adapted them. We took the competencies that they presented and we really wanted to think about how these competencies could uniquely fit within UMW. And so we took these 8, we had kind of put a few together, We renamed a couple, and then we added some. And so I'm going to talk to you tonight for the rest of our time together about how we did that and why. So starting with the why, let's talk about the interview. As we began this work, we did a lot of internal research at UMW. We looked at some of our exit data, our first destination data. We also looked at interviews. We literally watched interviews that were recorded for courses of our students engaging, answering career questions. And we know, you know, because some of you were students that are students, they know their stuff. They have learned a lot in their classes, but they didn't necessarily make the connection between what they were gaining in their academic lives or even their extracurricular or co-curricular lives. They weren't exactly making the connection to career. And so when asked things like, talk about a time when you brought order to chaos, or tell me about a time when you were part of a team or when you had to deliver difficult feedback. Sometimes they were able to pull a team project from a class, but often they were stuck, or they would reference the same experience over and over again for multiple questions. And so what we saw in this was an opportunity to give them a framework and to apply this framework across the campus in their classroom, athletics, extracurriculars, co-curriculars, so that as they began to think about communication, they would know that it didn't just exist in one place, but they could pull from lots of different examples from their entire experience at UMW. As we completed our research or continued our research and our faculty engaged, we developed 2 learning outcomes. The first is about connecting the liberal arts and sciences education to these core competencies. The second is about being proficient in communicating that. These learning outcomes will continue to guide us in our implementation of these competencies across the campus and throughout different departments. I didn't attribute this quote because these are words that I use often. I'm sure there are similar words. Words are powerful. There's a power that comes in naming something or having the name for something. And that's what having these competencies as part of our Life After Mary Washington framework does for our students. It gives them a vocabulary so that they can open doors that they didn't know existed. It gives them a vocabulary to start to talk about what they're learning, what they're experiencing across a broad set of experiences in their higher education, in their college education, and to articulate that to employers, to graduate school interviewers in a way that is meaningful and relevant to that context so that they can have more choices. These are the competencies. As we move forward tonight, I'm going to give you some definitions for these, and I want to talk to you about how students can engage with these competencies, some areas that are opportunities that we have on campus, as well as those of you who are professionals and already in your careers. I want to talk to you about why these are still relevant for all of us. So I'll take them in groups. The first 3, career self-development and professionalism, that is a mouthful. This is one that we combined in order to make room for others. As the working group, and I was fortunate to co-lead this with Dr. Jennifer Walker and a wonderful team of faculty and staff as we developed these. But this particular competency is about developing oneself, being a lifelong learner, thinking about professional learning and seeking out professional learning opportunities, being aware of strengths and weaknesses, And as I mentioned before, we've made investments in software to help students to do that, to do assessments. This is also navigating career opportunities, really thinking about which career opportunities are aligned with the students' values, which ones aren't, which industries make sense, or which functions make sense based on where their strengths are. So that's career self-development and professionalism. Some ways that we have that students can engage would be student clubs. Here at UMW, the President's Leadership Council, they can engage in taking some of those assessments, and they can also participate. They can also participate in career coaching with some of our career coaches at the Center for Career and Professional Development. And then finally, they can network with alumni as well. And alumni can share their stories, their challenges, their triumphs, in making a connection with those students. Leadership, we know what that is, but really it's leveraging the strengths of others and working through others, getting the best of what team members have available to get the job done, being an example. And this is important for our current students as well as those of us who are in our existing careers. This is what helps us to get noticed, get promoted, right? And to get things done for our organization. Teamwork and collaboration. This is about building and maintaining collaborative relationships. So if there's a theme here, it's about relationships, it's about self-awareness, and it's about engaging to get things done through others by making sure that we have what we need to be a positive leader and contribute to the organization. Next are 4 more. Digital fluency. In the NACE version of the competencies, digital fluency is called technology, and they had digital literacy. They had a few other words for this one. They landed on technology because they really felt that it was more encompassing, all encompassing. We changed the word, kept the definition for digital fluency because that is a core value, a competency here at UMW. And so we really want our students to be digitally fluent. We want them to be aware and to ethically engage with digital tools. We want them to practice creating content. And that's digital fluency. Communication, clearly and effectively exchanging information, ideas, and facts. Critical thinking. By the way, critical thinking, certainly one of the most important competencies identified by employers. So this was within the top 3. Critical thinking and problem solving, identifying, responding to needs based on understanding the situational context. So this is really about having enough understanding and information to solve problems when we have not been exposed to them already. This is really a fantastic place where the liberal arts shines, and we really want to drive this point home with our students and help them to articulate that. And then global awareness and cultural competence. This is part of our Aspire values. We know that we're in an increasingly global world and that there is not one thing that happens in one place that doesn't impact another, especially with our digital tools of the internet and other things. And so we want our students to be aware. We want them to understand how their decisions and their actions not only impact kind of their local sphere of influence, but how they are impacted by or have the opportunity to impact others in far away places, and how they can engage and leverage differences in terms of intercultural competence to get things done through others and to build an inclusive workplace. The last 3 are those that are unique to UMW. Well-being and mindfulness is increasingly important right now in this moment, where we are seeing a mental health crisis really with young people globally, in that 18 to 22 year category. But it's not only important for that reason. It's important because there's actually research that supports for leaders who understand how to take care of themselves, mind, body, right? And how to maintain a balance or find a balance, whatever that is for them. They tend to be healthier, make better decisions, and they set a great example for their team. And so their teams tend to be healthier, make better decisions. This is an important area for us at UMW, and so we've included it in our competency set. Next is meaningful connections. This is about creating awareness and appreciation for interactions with others, and this is quality interactions with others. This is, if you are an alum, you know that this is part of the hallmark of UMW. We are a smaller institution. We want that connection to happen in the classroom with our faculty, with other students, and with staff. And when I came here, one of the wonderful things that I loved about UMW, and I continue to this day, is the level of care that our faculty have for our students' learning, not only in the classroom and their academics, but also for their learning across all of their experiences at UMW. The faculty know the students' names, they are engaged. That is important. And so from the academic life to the social life, meaningful connections are an important part of UMW's fabric and DNA, as well as civic engagement and community service. So being active, being engaged in the community, lending time, volunteering. We just had an alum who was recognized for her volunteerism by the governor in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Our students are engaged. This is important. We know that we learn very valuable lessons from engaging in the community and being active. And so this is also one of our core competencies for life after Mary Washington. So advice for professionals. Hopefully you've heard some, but it doesn't matter what seat you're in. It doesn't matter where you are in your career. These competencies are still extremely relevant. They're helpful. These are the core competencies. When we think about, there was a time when I was a consultant with Ernst & Young, and I did a lot of organization design and development. And one of the things that was really interesting to me was this concept or notion of when we're early career, it's really we have to have the knowledge, those skills, hard skills, right? Of to get the job and to get the job done. As we progress in our career, it's how we get the job done and how we get the job done through others. And so even taking these core competencies and elevating them and thinking about applying them to your own position, your own career, and thinking about which of these areas do you have some opportunity for improvement? Where do you think you are doing well? And which of these align with the competency model of your organization? Because every organization, typically, not all, but many of them have their own competency model. And some of these competencies likely align. If not, this is a great baseline course set for you to explore. And even taking 1 or 2 a year and saying, I'm going to really invest for the well-being and mindfulness. I'm really going to invest in meaningful connections and try to expand my network outside of my organization and inside of my organization. So there's opportunities to look at these competencies and kind of reflect on your own career, where you are, and how you might improve or create a plan for yourself using this model. I'll end with another quote. This one I did attribute. But it's never too late to be what you might have been, regardless of our seat, where we are, how successful we are. There is always an opportunity to improve. There's always an opportunity to learn There's always an opportunity to do more, do better, and to help others to do more and do better. And I hope that we will. So I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about life after Mary Washington.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly. We appreciate the presentation. Now there is time, obviously, for those in the audience to ask questions about life after Mary Washington and all the things and the core competencies that she just talked about. The way to do that is to go once again to the bottom of the screen. You'll see a Q&A button. So just take some time to type in your question there, and we'll make sure that Kimberly is able to read it. If you see a question that has already been entered that you want to make sure gets answered, you can simply vote it up, and it will rise to the top of the list. So, if you have any questions you'd like to ask, please feel free to do that there. And while we're waiting on folks to type away, I know that that's happening behind the screen, and the first question is, thank you for an engaging presentation. What prompted the inclusion of the last three competencies?
Hi, Rose. Thank you for your question. Those last three competencies really represented kind of the core of who we are at UMW. And so as the faculty, staff, and the students who participated on the working group team, looked at the 8 that NACE provided, we felt like there was just a little bit more to make it unique to us. And we didn't want to just kind of take those and say these represent UMW, but that idea of mindfulness and well-being. We have the Tally Center, we have our fitness, our wellness center, and lots of student programming around wellness, mindfulness, and well-being, as well as that meaningful connections, and then certainly core, our community outreach and engagement group here on campus that works through many other or with many other organizations across the community. Those were part of our core values, and we wanted to make sure they were part of the competency set.
Okay, the next question, which of the competencies have been most important in your career?
Let's see. Most important in my career, I think professionalism would definitely be one. And kind of that mom with the long history of being an educator, that was extremely important to show up well and show up appropriately for the environment and read the room, so to speak. And certainly critical thinking, because we can, of all the things that we can learn, we can't know everything, but having a framework to think and to figure it out is invaluable. And so those would be the two.
Okay. And we've reached the end of the questions so far. I'm sure once again there are folks that are typing away as we move forward here. So go ahead, and once again, if you have questions, please enter those into the Q&A box.
Clarity is good, Philip. This is good.
Okay, here's another question. Which competencies do you believe represents the largest opportunity for our students?
Very interesting. So I would say this is based on, it's interesting because there are a few ways to answer that. Employers are surveyed every year or so by NACE to understand which competencies are most important to them. And the most recent survey said critical thinking, technology, and the global awareness and cultural competence were very important to employers. Now, it's interesting because every year or so, NACE surveys both employers and students, and what the students think they're good at and what employers need, and they're not always aligned. But the great thing is it's all the same. It's all part of that set of competencies. So if we can continue to help educate them across the board, they will be ready for their careers in the future. Have students been receptive to the rollout? Sorry, Philip, I did your job.
That's okay. Yeah, the next question is then this is from Amanda Talbert, which I'll give a shout out to Amanda, who is actually in our Career Center and is doing a great job making connections with employers as well. So remember the name for those of you that are interested in reaching out to the Career Center and supporting the Career Center. Amanda Talbert is the name there. So thank you, Amanda, for joining us. But the question is, have students been receptive to the rollout of Life After Mary Washington?
So they have. It's interesting, coming from a marketing background, Amanda, and you know this too. We have to say it, say it, say it, say it, show it. And so students have been very receptive. And we are doing a lot of work to make sure that they have they have the information and the content, that they have fun merchandise and stickers and visuals, and that we're really supporting and reinforcing the messaging around Life After Mary Washington through conversations. But students seem to get it. We do have a very robust assessment plan as well, that aligns with those 2 learning outcomes that we had, to measure annually how much students are learning, growing, understanding, and receptive to this initiative. We also did a pre-survey with students, which was well received. We had lots of participation, and I'm happy to say the students think they are all doing absolutely wonderful in every competency. So there's certainly some opportunity to help them to determine and reflect on where they'd like to grow.
Okay, next question. What are some ways that local alumni can engage and support current students?
That is a great question. Thank you. And so I will say that name again. Amanda Talbert, who is on the phone, is our Associate Director for Employer and Alumni Relations and Engagement. So it's reaching out. It's reaching out to the Career Center. There's to identify opportunities. We'd love to have you speak to classes. We always have classes with speakers. We do have those 1 credit career courses that I mentioned. We are always looking for speakers to come and talk to students in those courses. It could be bringing your company on campus to table, or to invite students to a lunch. There's Philip, remind me of the name. Is it Network Mary Wash or Connect?
Network Mary Wash, yeah.
Network Mary Wash is a great opportunity and a platform to answer questions for students real time. So if you're not registered already with Network Mary Wash, please do that. I don't know if we can drop the link to that in the chat, but Network Mary Wash is a great platform as well.
And I would say Network Mary Wash is, for those of you that may not be familiar, that is an opportunity for folks to be able to ask questions. It can be, it's intended for students, but it can also be other alumni, and they ask a question through that system, and it actually then the system uses AI to be able to match up the question with an alum and be able to say, okay, how do I get into law school? And so it would go through our database and be able to say, okay, here are some lawyers that have done it. And, then it'll send you an email and say, hey, would you like to answer this question? And then you say yes or no. And if you say yes, then you get to see the question. You can send the response back to the student that asked it, those kind of things. So it's really a very simple system, but it is with, if you do get one of those emails, understand that they are legitimate, and it is actually someone that is asking a question and you were matched to that question. If you don't want to answer the question, obviously you just click no, and it'll move down the list to the next match. So that's what Network Mary Wash is all about.
Excellent.
The next,
Please. Oh, just before you do that, I also, another way that alumni can engage if you're local, in addition to kind of you personally engaging, is your organization. So getting your organization to recruit student interns, to recruit students who are in their first careers. It's wonderful to have that network at an organization of folks who had the common experience of going to the same university. And so that's another way that we love for you to connect and engage with students.
the next question is, do you have metrics on student success at employment?
Sure. So I think I'm going to answer what I think this question is, and if I didn't hit it, please put another, try it again in the chat for me. We do measure that through the exit survey and the first destination survey, our students along multiple categories. So full-time employment, part-time employment, if they're still seeking a job, going to graduate school, volunteering, military. And I think that's it. So we typically, I gave a stat earlier that within 2 years of graduation, 90% of our students are employed, and that accounts for some of that volunteerism that may delay, from graduation to landing that first job, some graduate school. But upon 6 months, we typically have around 80% of students. So between 75 and 80% of students are employed either part or full-time upon graduation.
All right, next question. What are the 1 or 2 competencies that students are requesting?
That's interesting. So I think students are, especially coming out of 2020 and 2021, communication, they may not precisely be requesting, but communication is a big opportunity, where we're coming out of a time when we kind of communicated with ourselves, our kind of nuclear families, or digitally. And so there's really a huge need for leaning into more verbal communication, face-to-face communication, even if it's face-to-face in the way that we're doing this now, through Zoom, but I'll say real-time synchronous communication. That would be one for sure. And then certainly the well-being and mindfulness. So opportunities to really explore how to maintain that well-being and mindfulness in stressful situations, and in new situations, and as they embark upon new opportunities, whether that's career or academic.
Thank you so much. Looks like we have reached the end of the currently submitted questions. We'll give it one more second to see if there's anybody else that has something they'd like to submit. And if not, we will wrap up a little bit early. So here's your chance to get that last question in if you haven't already. All right. Well, seeing no more questions, we'll kind of wrap up here just a little bit early. So thank you, Kimberly, for joining us this evening. I'd also like to thank Mark Simpkins from Events AV, who helped facilitate the virtual logistics of tonight's program. And thanks again to all of our viewers at home for joining us and being a part of the conversation. Remember that this presentation will be available for viewing on the UMW YouTube channel by this time next week. There you can watch this program and browse the full catalog of Mary Talk. Our 8th season of Mary Talks will continue on February 21st and will feature Dr. Randall Rife, Associate Professor of Chemistry and Physics, and he'll be talking about killing cancer with heartburn medicine. Keep an eye out for more information for our next presentation in January. We look forward to seeing you then, if not earlier. Thank you and good night.